Elijah was a prophet of God, but there are other kind of prophets. But prophets, sometimes people think it's somebody who tells you the future, which is true, but it's not necessarily. It can be foretelling or forthtelling. It's like a lot of prophecy is like just telling what God has said, but then the prediction is the forthtelling. And then they were eating in this restaurant on Mount Carmel, and do they pronounce it that way there?
I think so.
Yeah, I've always pronounced it that way, but I know in California it's spelled the same, but they pronounce it differently. But Matthew says Mount Carmel is a bit of a misnomer. The Hebrew term is used to refer to a mountain range, also known as the Carmel Ridge, rather than a single peak. And in the map, it does show where you see that looks like a hand with a glove right here. There, Haifa is there, the modern city of Haifa. And then some maps have Mount, what did I just call it? Carmel here, but according to Matthew, it's probably this ridge along the Mediterranean Sea. And so that's where the story of Elijah is that we're going to tell today, that you're going to read too. And yeah, that's pretty much, I just thought that was so sweet to see that you had taken that picture. And then I wanted to read from the complete Jewish Bible, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, may your name be kept holy. May your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us the food we need today. Forgive us what we have done wrong, as we too have forgiven those who have wronged us. In other words, don't forgive us unless we forgive. And do not lead us into hard testing, but keep us safe from the evil one. For kingship and power and glory are yours forever. I just like the way that one is worded. I learned it differently, and probably everybody's learned it some different way, right? Okay, so we're going to get going, and you're going to be mostly reading from 1 Kings chapter 18, and I'm going to start with a little bit of a background, and then Anna's going to help me too. 17:1 I'm going to read, and then Anna's going to read something that has to do with that. Now Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, you remember Ahab was the king of Israel, and this is what he said: as the Lord, the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years, except by my word. He's telling this to the king of Israel. And so where did that come from? That's when you're going to read from what God said to Moses in Deuteronomy 11:13-17.
So, if you faithfully obey the commands I am giving you today, to love the Lord your God, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, then I will send rain on your land in its season, both autumn and spring rains, so that you may gather in your grain, new wine, and olive oil. I will provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and you will eat and be satisfied. Be careful, or you will be enticed to turn away and worship other gods and bow down to them. Then the Lord's anger will burn against you, and he will shut up the heavens so that it will not rain, and the ground will yield no produce, and you will soon perish from the good land the Lord is giving you.
And I like where it says, teach that to your children. Yeah, I was talking to Carolyn. I was telling her about this story I was going to do today, my neighbor, and about there was no rain. It was for 3 years. And I said, I hope California is not going to be like that, because well, I've been out working in the yard, everything's so dry. Even if I water it, it's just like not doing much good. So Anyway, then the word of the Lord came to Elijah, leave here, turn eastward, and hide in the Cherith ravine east of the Jordan. You will drink from the brook, and get this, I've ordered the ravens to feed you there. This is a very dramatic guy, Elijah. So he did what the Lord said. He went to the ravine east of the Jordan and stayed there. And the ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat in the evening. All the other people in Israel were suffering from famine, but here's Elijah sitting out there somewhere being fed by the ravens. I just think that is the funniest thing. Okay, so we're going to start with chapter 18, and I think we'll kind of just go like Ricky, Annalise, Lisa, and Rob, because there's like 8 different ones to read. So when you get to the end of what I say, then stop, and then the next person will read. Okay, so it starts with chapter 18, verses 1 through 6.
Is this First Kings? Oh,
First Kings. No, this one is, she read Deuteronomy.
Okay.
1 through 6, right, Momo?
Right.
After a long time, in the 3rd year, the word of the Lord came to Elijah. Go and present yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the land. So Elijah went to present himself to Ahab. Now the famine was severe in Samaria, and Ahab had summoned Obadiah, his palace administrator. Obadiah was a devout believer in the Lord. While Jezebel was killing off the Lord's prophets, Obadiah had taken 100 prophets and hidden them into 2 caves, 50 in each, and had supplied them with food and water. Ahab had said to Obadiah, go through the land to all the springs and valleys. Maybe we can find some grass to keep the horses and mules alive, so we will not have to kill any of our animals. So they divided the land, and they were to cover Ahab. They divided the land they were to cover. Ahab going in one direction and Obadiah in another.
Okay, and then Anna 7 through 9.
As Obadiah was walking along, Elijah met him. Obadiah recognized him, bowed down to the ground, and said, is it really you, my lord Elijah? Yes, he replied. Go tell your master, Elijah is here. What have I done wrong, asked Obadiah, that you are handing your servant over to Ahab to be put to death? Surely.
Oh wait, we're gonna go.
Okay.
We're gonna start at skip down to verse 14 to 21.
Am I doing those, or is Mom doing this?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. And now you tell me to go to my master and say, Elijah is here, he will kill me. Elijah said, as the Lord Almighty lives, whom I serve, I will surely present myself to Ahab today. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. When he saw Elijah, he said to him, is that you, you troubler of Israel? I have not made trouble for Israel, Elijah said, but you and your father's family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed the Baals. Now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table.
Do you know who Asherah is? She is the goddess wife of Baal. Okay, next reading, that was through 21, right?
That was through 19 is what I just finished.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people and said, how long will you waver between 2 opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him, but if Baal is God, follow him. But the people said nothing.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, 22 to 24.
Then Elijah said to them, I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bowls for us. Let Baal's prophet choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bowl and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. Then you can call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. the God who answers by fire, he is God." Then all the people said, "What you say is good."
So we got a contest going here. All right, so now we've got 25 and 26.
Elijah said to Baal's prophets, "There are more of you, so you go first. Pick out a bull and get it ready, but don't light the fire. Then pray to your God." They chose their bull, then they got it ready and prayed to Baal all morning, asking him to start the fire. They danced around the altar and shouted, "Answer us, Baal," but there was no answer.
Okay, 27 to 29.
And when Elijah began to taunt them, shout louder, he said, "Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought or busy or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping and must be awakened." So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention.
So there they are, working away, praying away to Baal. No response, no answer. All right, now we start verse 30 through 40.
Then Elijah said to all the people, "Come here to me." They came to him, and he repaired the altar of the Lord, which had been torn down. Elijah took 12 stones, one for each of the tribes descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, "Your name shall be Israel."
Wait a minute, I gotta put those pictures up, I forgot. Yeah. And this guy was up. Okay, and probably we can close that curtain now. If Annalise can still see all right. What verse were you on?
I just read 31.
All right.
How far do you want me to go?
31, I got 30 to 40, so you got a long ways to go.
Okay. With the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench around it large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. He arranged the wood and cut the bowl into pieces and laid it on the wood. Then he said to them, "Fill 4 large jars with water and pour it onto the offering and on the wood." "Do it again," he said, and they did it again. "Do it a 3rd time," he ordered, and they did it a 3rd time. The water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. At the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, "Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord."
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute, let's see. Just read that one verse, 37 right now, and then I'll turn the light on.
Okay. "Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again."
And what happened next? Go ahead and read.
Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, he is God! The Lord, he is God!" Then Elijah commanded them, "Seize the prophets of Baal, don't let anyone get away." They seized them, and Elijah had them brought down to the Kishon Valley and slaughtered there.
Okay, and then, let's see, I'll read. "And Elijah said to Ahab, 'Go eat and drink, for there is a sound of heavy rain.'" And then I was going back to 45. "Meanwhile, the sky grew black with clouds, the wind rose." And remember, there's been a famine for 3 years. "The wind rose and a heavy rain came on, and Ahab rode off to Jezreel." And Jezreel, I don't know if did I show this? This is a map that was in the time of Christ. And right here where you see the glove is where Haifa was, but Jezreel was like about here.
Mhm.
And I don't know how far it is, but Ahab was in his chariot riding, and Elijah said, tucked in his cloak into his belt, and ran ahead of Ahab all the way to Jezreel. You remember we had a record of that? Do you
Mhm.
remember the
Yeah.
record I used to play for you guys?
Yeah.
I just thought that was so exciting. So there's so much to learn about Elijah. He is just such a dramatic guy, but he really loved the Lord and believed the Lord. And I think this picture of him is so pathetic because they said that John the Baptist, when people saw John the Baptist, they thought it was Elijah coming to life again because he wore these strange clothes. And somewhere I read in one of my books that Elijah wore something like coarse camel's hair and sheepskin and stuff.
Yikes.
And that he had this long hair that hung down. So this picture of Elijah doesn't ring really true with me, but I guess they had to put that nice soft cloth on him and hide his hair. So he was quite a different guy, and who knows how he died.
Don't think he ever died, did he?
No, that's right. So what happened instead?
He got lucky and got to go straight up.
Well, that was Enoch.
Oh.
There were two guys who didn't die a natural death. Enoch said Enoch walked with God,
Mm-hmm.
and God took him. He just disappeared. But Elijah, something else happened to him.
I got nothing. What do you guys have?
I think it's in First Kings chapter 19. Let me look and see if I have that. Yeah, I thought I wrote it down somewhere. Oh dear. Well, anyway, Elijah, maybe it was in Second Kings, never mind. Elijah took that skin coat of his and hit the water, and the water parted. So he and Elisha went through the Jordan, I think it was, and it seemed like Elijah was trying to get rid of Elisha, saying, well, I'm going to go on somewhere. And he said, you can stay here. And Elisha says, no, I'm not letting you out of my sight. And so he kept on and on and on. Finally, this chariot, Elijah says to Elisha, what would you like for me to give you before, because he knew he was leaving. And Elisha said, I want a double portion of the Spirit of God that you have. And so come to find out, this chariot of fire came down. Somehow Elijah got into it and rode, and Elisha sees him going up into the clouds. And then here he says, well, I've got this cloak in my hand. So he hits the river, and sure enough, the river parts. I just think it's so fun. So that's just a little taste of this guy, Elijah, who is kind of like a John Baptist character.
Mm-hmm.
But I love digging in and preparing for these things because I've read these things, but I forget them.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to review and see them from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that maybe you will dig into Elijah's life. It's